throw another handstand walk course behind that, because I think some of the teams forgot the second one.
Amanda is down by the handstand obstacles.
And you know, guys, what I love about these handstand obstacles is that they're such a good visual representation of how the sport of CrossFit has evolved, how we keep throwing different challenges at these athletes. You know, a lot of athletes could have been taken out a few years ago, elite athletes with a long handstand walk. Then everybody mastered that. So why not at this point throw an obstacle at them, make them do a handstand walk over that obstacle? And quite frankly, it has taken some of these teams out.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And that's a nice look at that obstacle up close. Again, we saw them mixed up at regionals. They are together, either the ramp or the steps. We've seen a few teams complete this, and here's how heat number 3 will stack up. Seoul, Miami, a team that we wanted to watch. Let's see if they can jump themselves back into the top 10 before the end of moving day.
Well, they're sitting pretty close. We do have another event coming after this, but 200 points in 7 and 8. A lot of things can happen for a multitude of teams on the leaderboard, especially in the top 20.
Here's that Seoul, Miami team who won the Atlantic. Underway, we started off the male pair. The male pair will be on the rower, rowing 20 cows. Females on the assault bike. They are biking 15 cows.
Check that clock. You're looking for something, I would say, south of 60 seconds, since it is the beginning portion of this event. It's not hard to row for the men under that 60 seconds. 15 cows on the bike might be pushing the pace just a little bit, but I think for 3 rounds, it's the appropriate pace.
We've talked about on the lump, the handstand obstacles are the event here in event 7. And really, it's round 2 where we've seen it kind of rear its head for some teams. That first round, they've been able to maneuver through it, gut through it, even if they're not the best. But round 2 is really where it gets them.
I think people focus so much on the skill level, but the fatigue will take away from how proficient you are on the walks. And, you know, you look at that pace, I think that's the perfect row pace for 20 cows. Like I said, you row about a 1400, it's going to take less than a minute. The idea is that, you know, do you want to row easy and spread out your time because it might take the ladies a little bit longer on the bike, or just get it done and take your rest between then until they're done.
Chelsea Grigsby taking a look at Jamie Hagia finishing up her bike, and here comes Torch CrossFit. They were fun to watch yesterday in the 1 rep back snatch where they finished 4th in that event, but Torch CrossFit comes out 2nd place in the West Regional. They're a team to watch. They could punch their way back into the top 10. They came into the day, not currently, but the day, 12 overall.
I think it's the first time we've seen athletes go wire to wire. Andrew Kong on the right side, Teddy Wang on the left. He went unbroken. So did Chelsea Grigsby and Jamie Hagia. So Jamie Hagia, she'll take that little bit of a break. So this is kind of the speed I was looking for teams that are more proficient in the handstand walks to take advantage of that once they move through this event.
Have some teams of 3 athletes across waiting, and here comes Torrance CrossFit. They will be the first team onto the bob push, 44 feet. Their bob not gliding quite as smoothly as I've seen the other ones.
Not quite moving as fast. However, I'll say this is that I will not say the downside. The challenge is if you walk that fast, you aren't resting as much. A lot of these teams, if they take breaks in the middle portion of the handstand walk, are doing nothing but resting. Well, if you just sprinted on a rower and a bike and you walked unbroken, it's only going to take 20 seconds, where these other teams are taking 2 minutes.
So you see Seoul, Miami, Torrance, and Max Poles, your top 3 so far. And you have to get yourself back through the handstand obstacles to get back onto the bike and the rower. So Torrance CrossFit, 1 more to get across, so they can get back to the Concept 2 rower and the assault bike.
Now they switched things up on the way back. Actually, Chelsea Grigsby and Teddy Wang switched up obstacles. So Chelsea used the stairs on the way out, and then she went over to the ramp on the way back.
So Miami back into the lead. They are tied at Torrance CrossFit, and Max Poles has 2 athletes remaining to get across the obstacles. There goes Torrance CrossFit, Jamie Hagia, an individual games vet. Chelsea Grigsby, the female on the far side, 3-time fittest firefighter. And only a pair of teams, Seoul, Miami, and Torrance, are back on to the second round. Boston Billings will be the third team. They'll have their final male, and now they will jog back. They're in the pink and the white. So all in a row, you've got Billings, Seoul, Miami, and Torrance CrossFit. Max Pauls in lane 7. They are in these white bottoms closest to you on your screen at the bottom. When their females really rolling.
What Yuri Hansen was putting down on the assault bike, I didn't even have enough time to, and over in lane number 4, is that he just did his 20 cals in about 20 seconds. Now, that's an easy pace on the bike for Max Pauls. If you think about it, is that the downside about an assault bike is, one, it just sucks. Like, it is a hard thing to use. But the faster you go, you exponentially get time back. On the flip side is the slower you go, you'll lose that time. And Morten Almas, who's on the right, a bigger athlete, though he looks like he might be moving a little slower, there's a lot of power in the bike. So he's getting more bang for his buck just because of his sheer size.
Only a few teams have completed this event in the first 2 heats. In fact, all the teams that completed this event were in the heat prior. Kilo, Fabric, and Cadigo, 1-2-1, and Dwalaba in heat 1, capped out at 8:38.15, the time to beat by CrossFit Kilo in the prior heat.
Now, one thing to remember is that on the final round, they won't have to walk back. So there's one less handstand walk in that last round. So currently on pace, you do have Torrance CrossFit because they're averaging about 2 to 2:15, 2 minutes to get that 8-minute mark, as we saw as the time to beat of 8:38. So it's about 2:10, 2:12. But that's also with another taking a handstand walk out of that. So Torrance is actually well ahead of the pace that Kilo had in the previous heat.
Now Torrance taking the time getting back to the obstacles. They do have that lead. There's CrossFit Raw in the all white right in front of you, and they just completed their their first bob push. So they had some issues getting through the handstands.
Well, I think, you see Danielle Siddell in the front part of your screen, is that as great as she is at, say, rope climbs and legless rope climbs, is about as bad as she is at, I would say, things like handstand walks and strict handstand push-ups. So that might be holding the team up a little.
CrossFit Billings there on the top of your screen, getting it into the second section. They'll make the turnaround. 8:38 the time to be. We'll see what Torrance CrossFit can do. We've got about a little over 2 minutes to get through the course, back to the bike and the rower, and then back through and get bob push to the finish line. Again, the bonus is that if you complete it within the time cap, number one, you don't have to push bob to the start line, and the faster you get it done, the more time you have to rest before the about 30-second death sprint.
Oh, yeah, and that's the 2 minutes that you get. Well, how about the time you get when you finish well underneath the time cap of this particular event? So not only do you have, obviously you want to have the fastest time you can possibly get in the event, but the faster you go, the more rest you're going to get.
3 rookies on this Torrance CrossFit team. Hagia, the one vet. Grigsby, though, she's been close as an individual and regional. She's bounced around. She's been on that bubble. So here we go, the final row and the final bike. This is where you mix up the pairs, choose which pairs want to do what.
Now, that wasn't as fast of a handstand walk as they've had in the previous ones, a little bit slower, so they bled a lot of time on that the back half of the second round. So your time to beat, left corner of your screen, 8:38. That's actually looking very safe because they're going to be on that bike for a minute. And this is what I saw earlier, is that look how hard he's biking. I'm not going to say that's a bad idea. No, that's a bad idea. Like, that hurts so bad. And if your other athletes are taking a minute to do this, why on earth would you blow your legs up on a bike before you even start walking on your hands? Oh, by the way, you have a big bob sprint coming up after this.
Yuri did it last round. This time it was Mac Unruh who decided to give it the old sprint.
I mean, I understand that might be their game plan. I'm just saying it's a bad plan.
Why not just sprint it for a little warm-up? You're right. It's going to be blown up. It'll be interesting to watch lane 4 once we get to the sprint.
Yeah, I'd like to see the sprint. I hope they prove me wrong. I've been wrong before. I just feel like I'm right on this one.
Torrance CrossFit continuing to lead.
Unless they have like some beer bet who can do the 20 cal bike the fastest between the two guys.
Kilo's time to beat's already passed at 8:38, so they will keep their 100 points at least for one more heat. Heat 4 will come up next. Here's Torrance CrossFit again. And if Torrance can just get in under the time cap, we know they're at least going to have a top 5 with the heat remaining.
Now Teddy on the left side, he was having trouble on that handstand walk at the end of the second round. Seems to be doing a little bit better. I know he kind of fell down this first, but you know, this is such a technical movement. You know, I say it's almost like a fickle movement, like it's kind of like a squat snatch, a heavy squat snatch. It's just if one thing is out of place by just a little bit, you're going to fail.
He has the hands across, now they just need to race down there and get Bob across. They'll have a top 5 through 3 heats. See how much that can hang on after the final heat. They're also going to earn themselves about an extra 2 minutes of recovery time. They're going to get in right around 10 minutes, maybe just under once that chip timer gets across. 9:58.21 for Torrance CrossFit. So they're going to have about 4 minutes recovery time before a big sprint. Here comes Billings. Billings will have that extra recovery time, and in lane 5, Seoul Miami. Billings in at 10:14, Seoul Miami right behind him.
The bike sprint doesn't seem to hurt the guys, so maybe they're just tougher dudes than I am.
So we got to see an actual sprint by Mac Unruh and Yuri Hansen. Sometime when your event descriptions say sprint, it's a relative term, but not for those two dudes. Waiting as CrossFit Queens in lane 1. They've got a...
And that's tough because that's lane 1, that's round 1. And, you know, I don't know if it was the short straw to draw the steps, but you can see his hand slipping on that side, so that's not even like an ability of not be able to do it. That's just not really paying attention to what you're supposed to do. And that's Ian Berger, who, you know, is a common name in the East Regional when it comes to this competition. He's a good athlete, and sometimes things just don't go your way. But if it's been almost 12 minutes, either they made a poor choice on who they put on either side, or it just they knew that it was going to be hard for both of them.
Chase, I don't know about you, but it looks like something's either going on with the right or the left shoulder. I'm not sure the right shoulder is stable and the left shoulder's kicked out. He's not stacked too well on the left yet.
Yeah, but I think it's just a product of fatigue and just a product of not being able to do it.
CrossFit Melbourne, top of your screen, lane 2 is across and down at the bottom. Max Poles, who they're going to cap out. They don't get across on the chip timer. So Kilo's going to keep their time to beat at 8:38, but it's Torrance who gets the heat win.
And, I mean, let's talk about Kilo again, is how relaxed and smooth that whole event looked for him in heat number 2. And I thought Torrance was on pace. Their first 2 rounds, 2.5 rounds, or I say 1.5 rounds of handstand walks looked very good. You know, this is the start of round number 2. And look, up and over the ramp, no problem, unbroken, good positioning on the sled. They were on a great pace, but then once we moved into this 3rd round, that back half of the walk, handstand walk slowed down a little bit. Teddy Wang actually did a very good job of, once he kicked back up again, went unbroken, but you can see it's just a little bit slower than the first 2 rounds with. And the challenging part here for them on the sled pushes, I think, is because all the athletes are pretty short. You know, and if you look at their positioning on the pipes, they're very vertical. And what you want for power is you want to be a bit more horizontal so you have the most impact on the sled.
There's your heat results, 9:58.21 for Torrance CrossFit. However, Kilo again about a minute and a half faster at 8:38.15. But Torrance CrossFit's got a top 5 so far in this event with 1 heat remaining, because there were one of 5 teams to complete the time cap, but then we saw Billings and a few other teams come in Now comes event number 8 as we reset, and it's pretty simple.
It's simple. Push it as hard as you can. This is Billings. We have Yuri Hansen on the right, Mac Unruh on the left. These guys were blowing themselves up on the bike. I'd like to see how they handle this. But what you want to do is you want to put your big dogs in front, where they have the most impact on the sled, where they can press and lift a little bit at the same time.
And they're off. We'll see if someone can go sub 30. 37.9 by PBM's your fastest time so far. Maybe Melbourne or Frankston up high, who's grabbed the early lead and seems to be pulling away. And in lane 3, that is CrossFit Frankston. Reebok CrossFit Frankston way ahead by a length. Pulling away at the line, but they still have to get to the finish, Matt. They'll take off on the run. Chip timer will say 30.87 for Reebok CrossFit Frankston, so still looking for that first sub 30. Billings in at 35.25. Seoul, Miami, 38.04. Torrance, Queens, Backcountry, Salt Lake City, Melbourne, Max Poles, and Raw. But at 38.7 by Reebok CrossFit Frankston, so PBM's time stands by less than a tenth of a second.
There's the classic aftermath of this particular event, which makes my heart so warm and happy.
Frankston jumped out ahead and pulled away as much as you can at 132 by a little bit over a bob length. It's probably why you have such a, I wouldn't say long, but a longer reset between the sprint and the final heat of handstand, Bob, just to get everyone off the floor.
I heard one of the athlete control members just like, all right, guys, I know this sucks, but you got to get off the ground and get off the field.
It's like when you get done at the gym in the 4:30 class. And 5:30 needs to get to the warm-up. All right, just warm up around me. You know?
See, that's what I do, is that I make sure that someone in the class behind me is going to use the same weights as I am, and I just kind of like, hey, do you want to use my barbell? Right. Cool, I'm not putting it up.
3 heats have been completed of events 7 and 8. We have the final heat on the way and still looking for that first sub 30 on the Bob sprint, but we will have heat 4 on the handstand, Bob, coming away here for the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games. Here come the teams of heat number 4, events 7 and 8, looking to grab 100 points if they can beat Kilo and PBM's times of 7 and 8. I'm Jeff Private alongside Chase Ingram, Amanda Krentz on the competition floors. We're going to be back here at the North Park Stadium. We're going to be back on the field. We're going to have some fun here in the handstand, Bob.
Well, we are going to have fun up here during the handstand bomb, but they might not be having as much as fun as us because we're using the C2 rower. We're bringing the assault bike into play, 20 and 15 cals respectively for the men and the women. We'll do a handstand walk course to a big bob push, walk back to the bikes on your hands for 3 rounds, taking out that final handstand walk and just pushing that bob across the floor.
A 2-minute transition between the 2 events, so the quicker you finish, the more recovery time that you have. Again, these were the top 10 teams coming into the day. Mayhem Freedom, a solid day earlier today, and the triples didn't get the event win, but they did what they needed to do, and they are running away with it, trying to do what they did 2 years ago and go wire to wire. Invictus X, very, very solid, but don't stop. Devastating finish earlier today in the triples.
Yeah, not the start that they wanted to.
Kilo's time holding up by well over a minute at 8:38.15. Those are the teams that have finished earlier in these 3 heats. Kilo from 2 heats ago. Blistering pace.
Yeah, and they did the same thing last night in the Coliseum when we had the handstand push-ups in GHDs, and just a good, consistent pace the whole way through. That was a good performance by Kilo. I'd like to see if anybody can take this down. I think we got a few teams waiting in here in the wings that might be able to challenge that time of 8:38.
Underway, the male pair starts on the rower for 20 calories. The female pair begins on the assault bike for 15 calories.
And this is just pacing it out. We don't need to blow ourselves out of the water in the first part of the event. Is just get this done somewhere south of 60 seconds. These are some of the best athletes here in the field in the team competition. We have some of the best athletes from individual competition. So doing something south of 60 seconds, either on the bike or the rower, isn't asking too much. Just make sure you stick at the pace of your slowest athlete. Keep that pace, but it's the consistency in the middle. These handstand walks, either ramp to ramp or stair to stair. I want to see what teams can push the pace here that have the confidence to go up and down quickly.
And it is a fine line between how hard you push here to how bad it's going to affect you once you get to the obstacles. You want to go quickly, as you said, south of 60 seconds, but you really got to know yourself.
Right there at that minute mark, team's already underway, so there's that 60 seconds. OC3.
OC3 came into the day in 4th, but should be in the top 3 once we get official standings after Don't Stop really suffered in the triples earlier today. So OC3 should have themselves in a top 3 at this point, but everything unofficial. We're going by the standings coming into the day. There's Don't Stop. They've got a rebound because not only you can forget about catching freedom, now they're in a desperate situation as far as even getting on the podium.
They are. They're in a desperate situation, especially after this morning. And, it's one of those where it's just a tough event for Rachel. It's, I think the swim might have freaked her out a little bit out there. And, that's what comes with team competition, is that it takes 4 to succeed here at this level.
Well, we've seen Don't Stop. They started off, maybe not their best event on Wednesday and rebounded. Then they got an event win right now. And now here's Don't Stop edging that bob across. Right in front of CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. So even though they are not going to dethrone Mayhem Freedom in the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games, you still want to get as many wins over that team you were gunning for the next couple of days. You want to ruin the weekend for Mayhem Freedom if you can, if that's even possible right now.
No, it's not possible. You'd have to win every event, and they'd have to get like 10. That finish this morning killed it.
They're just trying to throw hand grenades at Mayhem Freedom, try to get ahead of them, maybe let someone else try to catch up. But still, I don't think anyone's going to catch up.
They're not going to quit. I would hope so. I mean, your name is Don't Stop. It'd be kind of ironic if that was the case. But, it does it does take the wind out of your sails a little bit. But I know these guys. I know they're competitors and their drive to always want to be the best. So they're not going to back off because, honestly, anything can happen. I'm not wishing anything bad, but we've seen teams at the halfway point have something happen to their team, and it totally took them out of contention at the games level. So anything can happen. There's no reason to back off because you're not going to win. So I'd like to see, and what Don't Stop is doing, is them keep putting pressure on these other teams. Just because you had a bad event in the morning doesn't mean you're going to have a bad one now, since it is 200 points. This is event 7, but event 8 right behind this. So you can still make up ground, and you're going to have to hope that some things don't go other teams' way.
Mayhem Independence moves into the lead, and Mayhem Independence came into the day in 8th place. They finished side by side with Freedom earlier today in the triples, but it's Independence, Don't Stop, and Freedom. Your top 3 here in heat number 4. They're chasing Kilo's time of 8:38.15. So we saw the obstacles pop up in regionals for the first time. These obstacles, they had the plates they had to maneuver in the Invitational, with these particular obstacles in regionals.
Now, as Don't Stop is finishing their second handstand walk, one team we haven't mentioned who's in contention for that podium spot is CrossFit Invictus X, who just finished their first round. They got very hung up on the handstand walks.
And Invictus X had a solid finish at 7th place earlier today in the team triples. So I'd like to continue that momentum and stay in the top 3.
And this is one of those issues that we've seen, is that the handstand walk course can really make or break a team. And we saw it give him massive trouble on the way out. The problem is they only have to come on the way back. So that handstand walk will make or break these teams.
Just saw Independence make their way back.
And look at Sheila Barton and Rachel Garibay in the back. They're basically standing up vertically in the back portion of this, because you're not allowed to move the handles down. And so what the problem is that they're doing very little to help Jordan and Travis in the front, because they're standing straight up and down. So if they're pushing with their legs, all they're really doing is lifting the sled up and not pushing it forward. Now, I'm not saying they're not trying to help,
right,
but just in terms of stature and how they can impact the sled, they're almost vertical.
And really, if you want the lift, Chase, you want the lift on the front.
Yeah, so here's CrossFit Mayhem, right? You have taller athletes, stronger athletes. Look at how they're leaning into the sled. Lindy Barber could probably lean forward a little bit more, and that impact they have, you can even see it behind them. Athletes leaning forward to push the sled forward. Don't Stop has quite the opposite thing going on, where their athletes are standing straight up because they're just too short.
Final handstand walk for Freedom, who is trailing Independence by just one athlete. Once Lindy gets across, and she does, they'll be back on. But still, it's Independence, Don't Stop, and Mayhem Freedom, your top 3. There, you made this point earlier. It was a good point. Now you only have to do the handstand obstacle one time. You don't have to come back this time before you finish out.
All right, so at the beginning of the rounds, we had men and women on the bike or the row specifically. This third round is that mixed pair. But there's only one handstand obstacle left for these teams.
15 event wins all time for Mayhem Freedom, the most all time, the second most. Tommy Hackenbrook's youth CrossFit teams, they had back-to-back affiliate cup championships. They had 10. So Mayhem Freedom, with a pair of event wins here this weekend in events 1 and 3, have expanded their record and will continue every time they get an event win. If they can get another one here, it's going to be close. 8:38.15, and Independence, though, has the lead. 8:38.15 Kilo's time from heat number 2. So right now it's Independence, Don't Stop, Freedom, Balance, 417. OC3 has fallen way off. They were in the top 3 through the first round. They are dead last in the heat right now. Back to Don't Stop. Here in lane 9, Mayhem Independence, bottom of your screen, trying to get the event win.
Wow.
And they will have the event win. 100 points for CrossFit Mayhem Independence. Another top 10 for the Independence team, and you'll know you like that in affiliate rivalry with Freedom.
I think we were talking behind the scenes and asking the question is, do you think Rich would get pissed off more by getting beat by Don't Stop or Independence?
Well, you'll have to see that trophy at the affiliate all year long. Here comes a great race.
Look at that.
top of your screen, it's going to be Freedom. Can they edge them out? Yes, they will. It'll be Freedom just ahead of Don't Stop. Boy, and Don't Stop had the lead on Freedom for the majority of this event, but it's Mayhem Freedom that wins the Bob sprint in the last 44 feet.
And both times faster than Kilo's time from heat number 2. So these are your top 3 times in the event.
So Independence, Freedom, 1-2, and Don't Stop 3 balances in at 8:47. Again, both Mayhem teams and Don't Stop finish ahead of Kilo, so that's your top 3, and Independence with 100 points. 417 now coming in. We've not seen a team chase. Freedom and Don't Stop, the first 2 teams we've had to see really sprint the final 44 feet. The other finishers have been able, not that they weren't trying, but they didn't have to get up the dead-out sprint, but they also have 5 minutes of recovery before we get to the next event.
And that's huge when you think about the impact it has on event number 8, where it's just a dead sprint across the field with the bob, and then that short sprint across the finish line. And now we're looking across the field and seeing what bobs are left on the competition floor and what affiliates are attached to that. One of those is Invictus, having a lot of trouble.
Here's Pro 1 at the bottom of your screen in the blue bottoms. And they're going to have about 4 minutes, a little under 4 minutes, to recover. Remember, you have a 12-minute time cap and a 2-minute reset. Several teams still out on the floor. And none of these teams really close to getting in under the time cap except for Invictus Back Bay. Back Bay starting to break for their final bob push. But it looks like everyone else likely will time cap out. There goes Invictus Back Bay. It's kind of been up and down over the weekend. They had hopes of getting onto the podium. Now trying to stay in the top 10 on moving day this Saturday with the sprint and then the event in the Coliseum a little bit later. Less than a minute to go in the 12-minute time cap.
Now, Reebok CrossFit 1, who was one of those teams vying in the top 5, even challenging from a podium position, has been stuck on this second round obstacle course for about the last 7 minutes. And I think the question is, you know, how does this become an issue here at the games level if you had to do it at regionals? And what we said earlier is that a lot of teams, it was part of the first event, and it was a combo one. You walked up the ramp and down the stairs 1 time or 2 times to get across. You didn't have to go back and forth like the individuals did multiple times. And also, you didn't have to do anything crazy multiple rounds. So this is a different style, even though it's very similar. And a lot of times is, you know, if you lose some of your confidence in the handstand walk, that's a huge part of this as well.
Well, they've capped out at 12 minutes, so these teams still on the floor have to push the bob. And the further behind you are, the longer push. You're going to have less than 2 minutes to turn around and push it back on a sprint. Mayhem Independence has been chilling out for a while. 7:59. They are the only team that broke the 8-minute mark. So they have 100 points now, and we'll see how they do on a dead sprint. But 100 points for Independence. Freedom picks up 94 points at 8:33, followed by Don't Stop. Kilo hangs on to a top 5 from Heat 2, and then there's balance at 8:47.
Well, this is the second time Independence has beat Freedom today, and I think the third time on the weekend. So I don't know how to say this, but like the only team that's challenging Mayhem Freedom seems to be Mayhem Independence, save for about 1 or 2 events.
They clean up the rest. We'll see if they can end up on the podium. The 100 points sure does help out a lot, though. So we have finished the event, handstand bob, and now we're getting ready for the simple but fun one, as I say, and you say for us. It's not going to be fun at all for these guys. It's going to be quick and painful.
Now it's going to be quick and very painful, and some very fast times to beat. Superhero CrossFit Fraternity has the time to beat at 30:79. Reebok CrossFit Frankston 30:87. You're talking about 8/100ths of a second difference. So where you place your chip timer here matters on the bob, because you want them to be the first one to release and sprint across the floor.
PBM again, as Chase just said, 30.79. Still waiting for the first team. There's 10 teams trying to break the 30-second mark. And it's more on that last 88-foot run, 44-foot, 88-foot run than the 132-foot push. Here we go. Boy, the team's pretty even. Way down in lane one, though. That's Invictus Backbay out to the early lead. Invictus Backbay by a length. Invictus Backbay by a length and a quarter. Invictus Backbay slowing up. 4:17 in lane two. Trying to close the gap, but it's going to be too little too late. Invictus Backbay now has to get the run, and that could be the trouble. No, their lead athlete with a chip timer races across. And it's going to be Invictus Backbay who beats 30. Let's see. That's the chip timer, but we'll see how this ends up. 28.53, the time for Invictus Backbay.
We got to think about the speed of this heat in general. This is actually one of the slowest heats we've had with the big bob since we started this, other than Backbay. Next closest time is 32.7 by OC3.
So one team eclipses the 30-second mark in the entire event. Invictus Backbay in the final heat at 28.53. OC3 gets second in the heat at 32.78. So Invictus Backbay really needed. We just talked about how they were kind of up and down, needed those 100 points.
Now, here's where the importance of this is. Look at the start. Everyone's even, and then you see in the background, Backbay just blowing everyone out of the water. Why? Because you have Breonna Hamilton and Kelsey Keel sitting at 5'8" and 5'7". A team that's struggling in the middle part. Don't stop. Center part of your screen, you can see it start to unfold. I said before, their disadvantage is that their women, Sheila Barton and Rachel Garibay, are too short to have an impact on the sled. They're standing up vertically, right? So the sizes of these athletes had a very massive impact on the speed of the sled.
And she's still down. I'm not sure if that was Tola or Nathan who made that sprint, but very heads up, as you and I have talked about in the past. Can't jog to the finish line. Great job by Invictus Backbay to get that final sprint. So Independence gets the win in the handstand bob, and it's Backbay in the bob sprint there with Amanda Crims.
CrossFit Mayhem Independence. Sorry to kind of pick you guys up off the ground to come over here for this interview, but congratulations on an event win and the event previous to that one. Talk to me about the handstand walks. Those were decimating a lot of the teams out there, even in the last heat that we saw. So how is it that you guys are so efficient on them?
Well, anybody that knows Rich knows that we handstand walk a mile every single week. And especially when the obstacle came in, it was like 2 miles every week. So we got really used to it. We'll say that.
Are you being 100% serious?
Kind of. Within reason.
So you do a lot of handstand walking?
We do a lot of handstand walking.
What is it like for you guys to have your other CrossFit Mayhem team here to compete against?
Every day we train is like the CrossFit Games. I mean, you compete against the best in the world every single day. The face of CrossFit, Hewitt, Lindy, Tasia, they're all Games athletes. In my opinion, all podium. So I feel like we compete in the CrossFit Games every day.
Is it like you guys are a team of 8, or are you 2 teams of 4 when you're practicing back home?
We're definitely a team of 8, but it always comes down to who's going to do the workout first.
Good job out there, guys. Thank you.
That is 100 points for Mayhem Independence. And Chase, it's always when you take the second class so you can beat your buddy's time from earlier. Here are the sprint results. Invictus Backbay got 100 points. The only team under 32nd, followed by Superhero and CrossFit. Franks and PBM's time earlier holds up for a top 5 of 30.